Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this cooled-down meeting of the Greenwich Audit and Risk Management Panel. We've only really one substantive item on the agenda this evening, so given the ambient temperature, we'll try to get through. But remember, obviously, we're considering a very important report, and we have to make remarks to the full council. So hopefully, it will be short, but productive. Please be advised this meeting will be recorded and posted on the Council's YouTube channel. Can all those speaking ensure you switch on your microphone before addressing the meeting, and remember to switch it off when you finish speaking. Before we start, just to note that the second independent member of the panel is to be agreed at the Council next Wednesday, and could I thank Susan and also Councillor Hartley for joining me in interviewing an impressive range of candidates, actually, and we felt there were some very good applications. In the end, it was quite a difficult decision between two particular candidates, but we made that decision, and that will go to full council for formal approval next week. And hopefully then the new independent member will be able to join us at our next meeting in the autumn, and I think Dr. Blackwell will be in touch with him too. Sorry, Dr. Blackwell.
He has, Azuka's given him my email address, and we've left it to him to contact me. So if he does, I will respond. If he doesn't, I won't. I hope he will. I mean, I think he asked her for it, so I expect he will. Yeah.
Thank you very much for undertaking that, and I'll try and contact him as well. Okay. Also thank Daniel for making all the arrangements, and Damon, the Director of Finance, and the Director of Legal and Governance for their assistance to to us in those interviews. So apologies for absence for this evening. I've received apologies from Councillor Nick Williams and Councillor Matt Hartsley. Are there any other apologies? No? I've not been notified of any urgent business. Does any member present have any declarations of any personal or financial interests for items on the agenda? I see none. We have the minutes of the last meeting in front of us. Are members happy to agree those minutes from the 18th of June? They're agreed, and I will sign those. Good. Councillor May.
Yes. Sorry, Chair. I did send apologies, but they were late.
Could we add? Oh yes. Yes, Councillor May, your apologies are in the minutes. Yeah, they are in the minutes. Thank you. Right, so item 5, the action log, which is a very important item. You'll see this on the yellow pages again after the minutes, and you'll note there that there are a number of items where we've asked for further information. Some of those have been responded to by email to members, and others will go to the next panel meeting on the 3rd of September. Dr. Blackwell.
Yes, just on the item 7, the breakdown of the client satisfaction scores. I understand what's said there, that there's no more detail they can provide, but I did notice that within the composite score for the lowest scoring directorate, there were lower scores, particularly 3s as opposed to 4s, against items 5, 6, and 7, which seem to be all areas that could lead to them not being able to respond very well. And since that has been an issue we have discussed, it seemed to me that maybe that needs a bit of digging. because it says, you know, they got a 3 for providing sufficient details to the risk areas providing practical recommendations to address them, and to assist the management in improving control environment. And those were scored lower than the other areas. So I just raise that as a kind of general concern, that it does point to perhaps some of the underlying reasons why some of these departments are having trouble doing their actions.
So I don't know whether officer wants to comment. Vivian, did you want to comment on Dr. Blackwell's observations?
Just to say that your comments are noted, and we are actually looking at trying to get to the bottom of that, to speak with the service area concerned to understand the reasons why. But I also think that going through the audit plan for this year, I think that problem might be addressed because of the way that we're approaching it. And it's one of the audits that have to be done every year. So it's something that we've got in hand, and we're looking at it.
If I can just, I mean, it strikes me that there could be very different reasons for the client satisfaction score, and that perhaps we need to dig in a bit with clients as well. It could be that they just are apprehensive or dislike the intrusion of internal audit, which obviously is necessary. It could be they don't like the outcome, or it just could be that the relationship has been difficult and the process has not been satisfactory. So we need a bit more granularity, perhaps. And it was very useful when we did the deep dives in 3 areas. And I hope we're coming to look at internal audit at our next meeting, I think, aren't we? Is that right? Is that right? Oh, right. Vivian, have we got internal audit down for the next meeting? Yeah. So I think that might be an area when we can ask specifically about the client satisfaction scores. And it might also be useful that meeting to do a couple more deep dives, if there are those you think, those areas. And Councillor Williams, who sent his apologies tonight, made the remark to me that we should at some stage come back to the right to buy process as well with housing. Because we appreciate they had a huge load, but there were great concerns about that. Was more to do with fraud than the internal audit process. So that might be a separate issue. But that is in the action log, and it would be useful to come back to housing at some stage and have them back to look at that right to buy process and whether we've taken further steps to reduce the level of fraud. Okay, well, thanks very much, Dr. Blackwell. We'll try and get more granularity then next time on those client satisfaction scores. Are there any other points on the action log? No? Well, thank you very much. If we can move then to the substantive item, we've got the Treasury Management and Capital Outturn 2024 and 2025. I think there should be a dash between those. Are you going to introduce this, Damon?
Yeah, certainly. There's a dash on the copy I'm looking at. Anyway, so in terms of the report itself, obviously this is the outturn report, which obviously reflects our sort of continued commitment to responsible financial stewardship, strategic investment and basically sort of delivering. If I start with the Treasury side, the last year saw us embark on the Greenwich Green Investment Scheme, something that this borough hasn't seen for many decades, the ability to sort of introduce local community involvement in helping to finance schemes that are important to residents in the community. So in our first sort of phase of that scheme, which operated during the year, that actually raised £560,000 from residents to support local climate projects. Basically, that, as I said, that's enabled local residents to be empowered and to be involved in the investments that we as a council are making, obviously for a greener future. On the wider sort of points, despite a challenging economic environment, whilst maintaining a prudent under-borrowed position, continuing to use our internal resources to reduce exposure to high interest rates, this is all set in the context of a really significant investment programme, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. The report shows that although we're continuing to use internal resources, during the year we have actually sort of undertaken borrowing, and that our borrowing still remains affordable, it is sustainable, and it is prudent. In terms of our cash and our investments, we actually achieved what I think we would consider a strong investment return, 4.92%, which sort of relative to sort of recent years is quite strong, and still prioritising security and liquidity. Everything obviously was done within the usual sort of limits and agreed indicators. If we turn to the capital side, this is the investment side, effectively. This year, that last year that's just gone, showed an investment level of £343 million, which is a really significant investment. That's quite sizable, again, compared with sort of previous years. And of that, 131 million investment in new homes, utilising our Greenwich Builds programme, and obviously sort of quite key in tackling the housing crisis. In addition to that, 97 million to improve existing council homes, ensuring that we've got sort of safe, warm homes, decent conditions for our sort of residents there, our tenants. Also investments in the new leisure centre, expanding, improving our schools, including vital SEND provision as well, and not forgetting £1 million towards our carbon neutral ambitions as well. So all in all, quite a significant year, but basically telling the story of the investment that this council is making in the borough for its residents.
Thank you very much, Damon. Did you want to add anything, Councillor Hyland, as a Cabinet member?
I guess the only thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank the committee for their watch on this issue, but also to thank the Chief Exec and Damon as Director of Finance and his team, including Audit and Risk, because it's been so important, for us to ensure that we can deliver our ambitions, but at the same time have that financial guardianship over the resources that are so scarce these days. So just a really big thank you, Chair.
Obviously, I'm sure we echo that. So I had quite a few questions because I've been through the paper, but I'll leave it to other members first. Dr. Blackwell.
Just an observation and a slight question. On point 6.7 on page 24 of the report, it says that, we're expecting the Bank of England rate to slowly fall now that inflationary pressures are reducing back towards the 2% target. Obviously, it does say that it's a bit of a fluid situation, and that was proved by some of the announcements today, which are projecting 4% inflation by the autumn. And I just point that out and say I'm glad you're keeping an eye on it, because it looks pretty volatile and almost impossible to predict, because some of these things are driven by external factors beyond the government's control. But it's worth bearing in mind that it is volatile and we need to keep an eye on it. But thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
I just echo your comment and the comment made by Denise that I congratulate the team for actually putting together a very affordable programme and a very prudent one. I think should be congratulated on that. I just wanted to raise a couple of questions which are not necessarily in the report, and I'm just wondering why. For example, I think there was a reference, I think, at a previous meeting, and I think there's a reference in one of the appendices actually about the asset review. I don't know where that actually surfaces or the progress on it surfaces. I wasn't able to come to the last meeting, although I was saying to the chair earlier, I managed to read that in real depth, mistakenly thinking it was the agenda for this meeting. So I'm up to speed historically, but I still don't see where this asset review work is actually taking place, progress on it, what's been gained from it, and so on. I also wanted to raise the question about this. Again, it's just for my information, my understanding, because I've not been on this panel for very long. But when I was first got involved in local government many years ago, the Loans Board was a real opportunity, a real asset. And I think, well, what on earth happened to it? That it seems to be we can't seem to do better with the Public Loans Board than you can do with dealing with the banks. I don't know if there is any history on it that's relevant. The third one point I wanted to make was again, it's not covered actually in the report, but I often refer to it as Damon's shoebox. But I wonder where on earth is all the cell payments stored and recorded and how they're being processed and dealt with. And again, I suppose you could add to it, not just that, but I sometimes I hear people say, we paid for it because we had some 106 money for this and some 106 money for that. And I just think it's just like, it seems to be a whole area of work and data which is outside of our purview. I think as well, it was mentioned a couple of times, and this was the last point, it was mentioned a couple of times in the report about the sale of the leisure centre, and I just wondered what the plan is for the disposal of that, given that we're now very close to the opening of the new leisure centre, and that one's therefore becomes redundant. It'd be nice to know what the plan was. I've heard some discussions, but I'd appreciate some advice on that, and whether in fact we would be able to review some of these asset disposals generally. So that's enough to be dealing with, I think, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Sullivan. Before I ask Damon to come in, just add in terms of the asset review, while we've very clearly had some key priorities like the leisure centre and the climate and transport and schools, and obviously housing in terms of capital priorities, there are assets that come left field, like the Calderwood car park and the town hall. That's great to see the work, but they do come left field rather than part of some sort of broader asset management plan. And obviously, as a panel, what we're keen to see is good financial governance, and asset management clearly is part of that. And generally there is very good governance, but there does seem to be a few left field things coming at the edges. So just might be useful if you could pick that up in the questions as well, Damon.
Okay. Right, where should we start? Let's go backwards. There was a specific reference about sale of a particular asset, which was the existing leisure centre. Obviously, specific asset sort of disposals are a matter for the executive, to look at, and therefore potentially are under the sort of purview of scrutiny. I think this body here, Audit and Risk Management Panel, if we think about the terms of reference, it is more about the overall risks around sort of capital programme and so on, and not necessarily specific items themselves. In terms of the SIL, and obviously there was comments about, sort of how is that sort of dealt with. I was just having a look through the scrutiny work programme, because I think from memory there is a report that goes through one of the particular scrutiny sub-panels that actually does review the Section 106 and SIL arrangements. And there is obviously the infrastructure funding statement that is actually produced annually, and that's obviously taken through Cabinet and then published as well. There was reference to the Public Works Loans Board, and I think what I would say there is, yes, there are alternatives out there. However, it depends exactly what you're looking for. If we're looking to sort of basically, if we're looking to sort of borrow on the day, sort of so to speak, you'll probably find that the PWB does tend to be the cheapest vehicle that's out there. In particular, if we think about our borrowing requirements as well, the majority of our borrowing requirements going ahead are housing related. We have a really, really significant sort of programme in housing, as I said at the beginning, 131 million sort of investment, in housing in the last year alone. Now, the PWB actually offer a discounted rate if the borrowing is actually to do with housing. That's open for a sort of limited time. They sort of opened it up initially, they've extended it, and it's still available at the moment. So when you take that into consideration, the majority of our borrowing going forward will be for housing. There are discounts available through the PWB, so it is likely to be, the PWB where we are going to be, taking that borrowing. Again, the first question probably links back with the last one, which was about the sort of asset review. And again, I'll sort of link back to the first sort of question in terms of, or the first one I addressed, in terms of, this is about sort of disposals and, lists of, assets that are potentially, being put forward for disposal will be considered in the usual manner by the executive, and again, is probably one more for scrutiny, rather than this place. This place being, do we have adequate arrangements in place? I think is more what this body is sort of charged with, and so that would be more along the lines of the process itself, not the specific assets. Whether it's building A or building B. So I appreciate that's probably not what was potentially being looked at for an answer, but I think I think that is the appropriate answer. This place is more to do with the overarching sort of programme itself and arrangements for the capital programme per se.
I mean, I can see that, but one of our, within terms of reference, obviously we can comment on the capital programme. And the point I made was around asset management, and therefore having such a good asset management plan, which obviously, asset management plan might be that we can't get a return on investment, an asset has no longer use, it's just a cost, which serves no service function. And therefore we are best to dispose of it. But it's much wider than that. It's how do we maintain the asset over a lifetime and maximise our return from the asset, so we're sweating our assets. And I do think that is very important, that we keep an eye, and that very much obviously is what the external auditor will look at as well, and we'll have to receive their report that we are sweating our asset base as far as we can, and that we try to avoid, you can't always avoid things coming left field because they're always crisis, but as far as possible we try and avoid large left field costs coming onto the capital programme. Okay. Does any other member have any questions? Councillor May? Oh, right. Okay. So I had a few, if I might. So I wondered, firstly, So first, I think I ought to say I'm very impressed that we've managed to cover so much of our borrowing through internal borrowing. Again, that's excellent, and reduce the costs of the revenue costs of servicing the debt quite considerably. So, but I was going to ask what the revenue cost was in the last financial year of servicing the debt, and how that compares to the previous years, and what the trend line is, because in those councils that are really struggling, this is something like Birmingham, this is something you really have to look at. What proportion of their revenue budget is actually on servicing the debt, you're spending on servicing the debt.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually got, might actually have it to hand if given a couple of minutes, might be able to actually sort of pull that answer out. If you're happy to defer, move to another question and see if we can just pull it out.
If you could, that'd be very helpful, thank you. I wonder on table 2, and I should be able to look this up, I know, but on table 2, what the comparative figures were for the prior financial year, for the CFR, the debt, and the under borrowing. Well, I can see the debt at the first was 463, so our debt has increased quite considerably in over the year. It seems is that, should we be over alarmed of that, or should we be comforted that the investments have been very sound and therefore reduce the pressures significantly on revenue budgets?
Well, in terms of the increase, again, it's another figure we could probably pull out in a moment as well, in terms of what that figure was last year. But so the increase is split, obviously, between sort of housing and the general fund, each side will pick up its respective element. As to what is borne by each side. I think the thing to bear in mind is that all of this is sort of forecast at the beginning of the year when we present the sort of treasury management strategy, and we set the prudential indicators. Those prudential indicators make it quite clear that we are operating in an affordable, sustainable and prudent manner. Within those indicators, one of those actually sets out what percentage of your sort of revenue is actually being attributed to interest payments themselves. So that's all there. That's all agreed by full council in February each year. In terms of the previous question, if I might sort of just jump back to that one. So total total interest costs, borne by the council, and just to bear in mind that this also includes potentially some around other arrangements and some other sort of lease type arrangements as well. They've moved up by sort of 4 million over the 24-25 period.
Quite small in terms of our overall budget.
Well, 426.
Yeah.
Yes, is the increase.
Yeah. Now, as we have Julian Gokul here, my next question might be for him. which is a green investment scheme. I think we made the comment here before at Audit, and it's also been made in other quarters at the scrutiny panel, is about, I mean, this obviously is tremendous, and I declare an interest because I took out one of these investment bonds, but I'm keen maybe to do another one, but actually some granularity and how it's being spent and what the money is being actually used for is, I think, what has been asked for. And more sort of communication with the people that have taken out bonds. I'd like to take bonds, but I mean, there are generic things of what it might be used for, but more specifics on what it has been used for and what the second round will be used for. So people can actually see that their money is making a difference. The solar panels somewhere, or retrofit, or whatever it is we're spending it on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for the question. And I think, as you mentioned, you previously raised this point at another place in terms. One of the things we had was a vacancy, a sustainability officer. We had a vacancy there. That's been filled now, so we have a meeting with that person tomorrow to discuss the communication that's needed, both on the first launch, but also the second launch. In terms of the first launch, that was earmarked towards Eltham Centre. So decarbonising the Eltham Centre. As a broad stroke in terms of the second launch, we're looking at schools at the moment, decarbonising schools, and also the electrification of the fleet at the moment. But we will come out with a bit more granularity in terms of communication once we speak to the sustainable officer in terms of comms.
Thank you very much.
Can I just ask supplementary on that?
Oh, of course, Councillor Sullivan, yeah.
I think we said it was a great opportunity for the community to get involved. I just wondered, do we get, what's the data we have tells us how widely that is? You know, is that 100 people, or, you know, could that, I can't remember the details of the scheme, how much is the maximum investment an individual can make? But I'm just wondering, how spread is it? Is it a small number of people or a large number of people?
Thanks. In terms of the data for the first launch, I can come back with the data in terms of the amount of spread. I just printed off before coming to the committee around the second launch, and at the moment there's 174 investors currently at the moment. So, but we can provide the update on both the first launch and the second launch at the moment.
Thank you very much. So if we can make a note of that, and I think that probably needs a bit more publicity for the second launch. I might just have missed it. Okay. I think that was, yeah, I was wondering, in 11.1, we list some of the major investments we've made in the last year, and all excellent. But I wonder if we've got anywhere what the impact has been of those investments in terms of the in terms of the revenue savings to the council. So obviously new homes and so forth means revenue savings, temporary accommodation means revenue savings, and investment in existing council homes might mean some revenue savings in terms of repairs going down. I'm not sure, but that would be HRA anyway. And leisure facility, would that mean any revenue savings because of increased revenues, renegotiation of the contract with GLL and so forth, given they'll have a world-class facility? Are there additional revenues in terms of business rates from the investment in high streets and so forth? So it's what implications these capital programmes, which are all excellent, have had in terms of our revenue. It would just be useful to have a little more information on that.
I think in terms of when we think about sort of the wide range of projects that we've actually got sort of listed here, I think it would be possible to give some indicative. Clearly, we can't do this, to a finite degree, because some of the benefits are going to be sort of intangible. But maybe the suggestion is that for each one, there's a couple of sort of key headline points which will help inform answering that question.
We should note in particular, I think, as a committee, that the investment in temporary accommodation and in Greenwich Builds has meant that we now have no families in in hotels anyway. We still have, sadly, fewer families in temporary accommodation, but not in hotels, which were very expensive, and that's reduced our spend on significantly on homelessness. And as a borough, we're well ahead of other boroughs, I believe, in doing that. And I think that's to be welcome, both from obviously a human point of view as well as a financial point of view. Okay, I was going to just ask on 11.2, the forecast position was obviously within just 1%, but that was a report to full council in February 25. What was the capital spend compared to the budgeted capital programme for 24-25? That, I assume actually that's table 4, isn't it? So we underspent by 4 million or something out of 347 million, is that right?
Yeah, effectively the forecast is what was set at the beginning.
So again, I think we need to praise officers throughout, really, that the outturn, we've met the capital programme objectives. Obviously, there are always going to be a bit of some slight variation due to programme slippage and so forth, or changing priorities. The one area within Table 4 I noted where there was a significant variance was in schools and early years, and I wondered whether that was slippage and projects coming in over budget, or was it slippage? So it's costs that have been fast-tracked, that passed on from the previous year, or is it that projects have cost more than we anticipated?
Sorry, Michael's going to take that one for us.
Yes, so the main variance in the schools programme is related to the delivery of the SEN scheme in Hargood Road. So at the start of the year we were anticipating some delays, but the project team managed to get on the track and start delivery earlier than we originally anticipated.
So it's purely a timing thing. It's not that the project has gone over budget.
No, it's just a reprogram.
We've fast-tracked it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. I don't have any further questions. Do other members have any further questions or comments on Treasury management and the capital programme? Right. Then in terms of comments that we make to full council, are we happy to firstly congratulate the council on its stewardship of the Treasury management and the capital programme, and to thank them, but say that we need to continue to be vigilant in terms of the impact on the servicing costs, and also to take on Dave's point, perhaps, that we need to ensure that, as far as possible, the capital programme reflects a robust long-term asset management plan. Yep. Any other comments? Good. Okay. Thank you very much for that. We now move on to the private session. So we go out of camera. Can I thank the officers that attended? Thank you very much.